Thank you for coming. Ben was saying it's a fantastic turnout, and we're very happy to have you all here. I just met Ben on Friday, I think it was on Thursday, I can't remember exactly, and he asked me to talk about a little bit about what is a think tank. And funny story, as I was coming up the lift now from the lobby, I found a group of people who were just having that discussion that were asking the same questions, like what is a think tank and what is it that we're doing there? I didn't say anything, because I want to say the best for now. So here I am. But as always in politics and in social sciences, it's very hard to find an exact definition. So when somebody asks what is a think tank, it's very hard to know really what exactly it is. And as always, it's a lot easier to say what it's not. So I'm going to take the easy road here, and I'm going to try to explain first what it's not. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, I have to come up with it, a think tank is a research institute or other organization providing advice and ideas on national or commercial problems, which is a definition that was included in 1959. Obviously, it's a very wide definition. It doesn't really say much, except that a group or organization that wants to advise on national policies or commercial problems, well, any sort of group could be that. A political party could do that, a lobbying group, a consultancy, an NGO. Any group can try to do that. But I think the difference is that at least, well, think tanks started first in the United States, but in Britain they appeared well before 1959. Probably the first think tank in Britain was the Fabian Society, which was founded in 1884 by Sidney and Beatrice Webb and George Bernard Shaw, who also founded the LSE. And the basic aim of this group of intellectuals was to have some sort of influence in British society, and they tried to introduce what they call democratic socialism into British society, which in turn gave birth or shaped in a great way the Labour Party. So we can see that historically think tanks have not been entirely independent, which is something that they're supposed to be. But I'll get to that a little bit later. In Britain and the US, especially in the US, think tanks began really their history in the US. But it can be understood as an organization that conducts research with a view to causing political policies to change. That's a key definition. Now, why think tanks started in the US, it's obviously because the way the government was organized and they had a little bit more freedom. But think tanks really started to kick off after World War II, basically because there was a need for think tanks. There was a need for different organizations to act in public policy. They started to flourish in the United States, but then they moved all over the world, especially in the United Kingdom. And think tanks in the UK really started to flourish in the 1970s, and then in the 1980s, and now if you ask me, they've got to ridiculous levels of think tanks. There's hundreds of think tanks in the UK that's supposed to serve all different purposes. But anyways, the difference from a think tank. What's the difference from a think tank? What is a think tank, and why is it different from a political party? Or why is it different from academia, from a university? I mean, an academia, a university here at King's, they have hundreds of researchers that are constantly working, trying to, do their political research and engage in academic debate. But I think the difference is, in some circles, think tanks were defined as the universities without students. It's like a teaching for everyone. But I don't think this is accurate. I think the main characteristic of a think tank is that what it says, that it's research with the specific aim of influencing and changing public policy, which I think is very important, as Ben was saying, is something that we're trying to do here at King's, which is something that distinguishes the King's Think Tank Society from any other research that is going to be taking part in King's. Research at King's, at the academic level at least, obviously sometimes influences public policy and it reaches to the highest levels of public policy in this country and all over the world. That is obviously fantastic, but it's not designed to influence public policy. The King's Think Tank Society is designed to influence public policy, and it's supposed to give you all a voice. And you're going to tell us where the society is going to go, and we are going to influence public policy. It's different from an NGO as well. Some people say, well, a think tank is nothing more than an NGO. Well, this may be the case. A think tank, by definition, is an NGO. Well, in this country, not so much anymore, because most think tanks have some sort of link to a political party or the government, which is problematic. But a think tank, at least by definition, or in essence, is different from an NGO, basically because NGOs may try to influence public policy, but they do it in different ways, and usually not by doing research. And that is the difference of the think tank society. Here we have other societies that have tried to influence society, or they have tried to influence public policy. But here at King's we're going to try to do it through research, through our own research. There's a very big difference as well between academic research and think tank research. I don't know if anybody here has ever read a paper from a think tank, or I suppose you've read an academic paper. But they're completely different from one another. The academic paper is trying to engage more in an academic debate, trying to, more often than not, say that somebody else is wrong and that you're right about a specific issue. A policy paper from a think tank is completely different. It's trying to influence directly the people who are engaging in politics. Finally, a think tank is different from a political party, well, because think tanks also they try to influence public policy. They don't try to achieve power. They don't necessarily aim to engage in the game of politics. They're important because exactly that's the point. They give a voice and they give a space to people who are not engaged in politics, and it gives them a voice and the possibility to influence public policy in a very direct way. Think tanks are supposed to be a forum for society. Now that takes me to the problem of think tanks. As I said before, I think think tanks have gone to a stage where it's getting a bit problematic. And I think King's College Think Tank Society addresses that issue fantastically. But also the think tanks were very respected in Guangzhou in the 1950s and the 1960s, and then again in the 1970s, especially through the whole center-right think tanks became very famous and very popular because they influenced a lot of the privatization and neoliberal theories that when the technocrats really took hold of policy worldwide. And think tanks were their big, the way they express their ideas. So they became very famous and very popular, so the left didn't want to be left behind and started coming up with their own think tanks. But it got to a point in the 1980s and the 1990s when there was, in the UK, there were hundreds, there's literally hundreds of think tanks. Most of them, or many of them, are registered charities as well, because they're supposed to have a educational work, and supposed to educate society, which in itself I find problematic. Or if they're not charities themselves, they set up parallel charities as umbrella organizations. Again, most of them claim to be independent, but they rarely are. And they have their own little slang or language in the think tank world. I worked in the think tank for a while, so I'm familiar with it, unfortunately. But usually when you see a free market think tank, that's not so very nice. It's usually, more often than not, it's going to be a Tory think tank, and it's going to be closely linked to the Conservative Party. If you find something like progressive, or there's talk about social justice, it's more often than not going to be a Labour think tank. And you only have to look at the board of directors or whatever, and you can see that most of them have some sort of links to political parties. Now, this in itself is not a bad thing. Political parties are obviously entitled to have their own their forums to put out their ideas. However, there's the so-called non-for-profit public policy research industry, which is the think tank industry is known. It's become just that. It's an industry now. Also think tanks are supposed to fill an important role in society, as I said, to be a forum for society, for certain sectors of society that don't have a voice directly into public policy. And lately, think tanks have become exactly the opposite. They've become forums for politicians to address society and to put out their ideas and to try to influence public opinion instead of being the other way around. It's true that, I mean, David Cameron talks at various different think tanks. His think tank that he's closely linked to, the Labour Party leaders do that all the time as well. No Labour Prime Minister has not been a member of the Faith in Society, so they're very closely linked. So that takes me to what is unique about the KCL Think Tank.